Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. Forget the clash of armies and the rise and fall of empires for a moment. Instead, picture this. You're stepping through a heavy wooden door, the scent of aged parchment and beeswax tickling your nose. Sunlight streams through a high, arched window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Around you, figures in dark robes bend silently over large, open books, their quills scratching softly. The only sound in this sanctuary of knowledge. It's peaceful, isn't it? Almost hypnotic. Now, while this might sound like the perfect escape, just remember, back in the Byzantine Empire, a simple paper cut could turn into a life-threatening infection. So, yeah, you probably won't survive this either in its own quiet way. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Always fascinating to see where in the world you all are as we drift off together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing just inside the heavy oak gates of a Byzantine monastery. The stone walls surrounding you are thick and cool to the touch, worn smooth by centuries of hands passing over them. The air here is different, hushed and still, a world away from the bustling marketplaces and crowded streets you might have just imagined. There's a profound sense of order and timelessness, a feeling that the rhythms of life here beat to a different drum, slower and more deliberate. You can hear the faint chirping of birds outside, but within the walls, a deep quiet prevails, broken only by the occasional rustle of fabric or the distant murmur of voices. Take a deep breath. This is a place dedicated to contemplation, to faith, and, as you'll soon discover, to the painstaking creation of beauty. Stepping further inside, you pass through a shaded courtyard, perhaps with a small fountain gently trickling in the center. The sound is soft and rhythmic, adding to the overall sense of tranquility. You notice the simple yet sturdy architecture, built for longevity and purpose rather than ostentation. The air carries a faint, sweet scent, a blend of beeswax from burning candles within the chapel, and perhaps the subtle fragrance of herbs drying in a nearby garden. You can almost feel the weight of history pressing down gently, the countless prayers whispered within these walls, the generations of monks who have walked these same stone paths. You are now entering a long, high-ceilinged room. This is the scriptorium, the heart of the monastery's intellectual and artistic endeavors. The atmosphere here is palpably different from the outside world. It's a space dedicated to focused work, to the slow and deliberate transfer of knowledge and faith onto the page. The windows are large, allowing ample natural light to flood the room, crucial for the intricate work being done here. You see rows of sturdy wooden desks or lecterns, each occupied by a robed figure bent intently over a large manuscript. The only sounds are the soft scratching of quills on parchment and the occasional turning of a page. There's a palpable sense of concentration, a shared purpose that hangs in the air like a gentle hum. It's a place where time seems to slow down, where each stroke of the pen is a small act of devotion. Historians still debate the exact layout and organization of Byzantine scriptoria, with some suggesting larger communal spaces and others proposing smaller, more private working areas. Regardless, the dedication to the task at hand would have been universal. As you stand there, letting the quiet embrace you, your gaze drifts to one of the monks. Let's call him Brother Elias. He's an older man, perhaps in his 50s or 60s. His face etched with lines that speak of years of quiet contemplation and dedicated work. His movements are slow and deliberate, infused with a sense of peace that comes from a life lived according to ancient rhythms. Imagine him waking hours before dawn, in the crisp, cool air of his simple cell. No noisy alarm clocks here, just the internal clock, perhaps nudged by the monastery bell tolling the hour for matins, the first prayer service of the day. He would rise from his straw mattress, the chill seeping into his bones, and quickly don his habit layers of simple cloth, designed for practicality rather than comfort, but providing a necessary warmth in the unheated stone buildings. His first task, after the initial prayers, might be something surprisingly mundane, something that connects him to the simple needs of the community. perhaps tending to a small patch of herbs in the monastery garden, the dew cool on his fingertips as he checks for weeds or gathers leaves for the day's meals. You might see him carefully lighting lamps in the scriptorium before the main work begins, the gentle glow pushing back the pre-dawn shadows. Or maybe his duty involves preparing the communal breakfast, a simple affair of bread, perhaps some cheese or vegetables, and watered wine or gruel. Imagine the quiet clinking of earthenware bowls, the smell of fresh-baked bread, if they were lucky enough to have an oven going, the shared silence as the monks partake of their first sustenance of the day. It's a far cry from your rushed morning coffee and scrolling through social media, isn't it? You realize just how much of modern life is geared towards speed, while here, everything is measured, deliberate, almost sleepy. This early part of the day, before the focused work in the scriptorium begins, is crucial for setting the tone. It's about grounding oneself, performing simple, often manual tasks that connect the monk to the earth and to the basic necessities of life. It prevents pride from creeping in, reminding them that even in the pursuit of divine knowledge, there are earthly duties that must be fulfilled. Think of it as forced mindfulness long before anyone invented apps for it. And frankly, trying to find a clean, cool pen when you're half asleep and it's still dark outside, that takes a special kind of focus. You might chuckle softly to yourself, imagining the sheer willpower required to be productive at that hour without the aid of caffeine. A mainstream historical fact about monastic life across different traditions, including the Byzantine, is the rigorous schedule dictated by the divine office, a set of prayers performed at specific hours throughout the day and night. These services structured the monk's entire existence, providing a framework of prayer and contemplation around which all other activities revolved. They would rise for matins and lauds before dawn, pray again at prime, terce, sext, and none during the day, vespers in the early evening, and finally compline before retiring. It was a constant cycle of spiritual focus. Now, for a quirkier tidbit. Did you know that some Byzantine monks, in their pursuit of asceticism, went to extreme lengths? There were stories of stylite monks, like Saint Simeon Stylites, who lived on top of pillars for years, enduring the elements and relying on others to bring them food and water. While not all monks were this extreme, it gives you a sense of the dedication and sometimes eccentric paths taken in the quest for spiritual purity. Imagine trying to illuminate a manuscript balanced precariously on a pillar. Talk about difficult working conditions. Historians still debate the exact motivations behind such extreme ascetic practices, whether they were purely spiritual devotion, a form of public witness, or perhaps even a quest for personal notoriety within the monastic community. It's a fascinating puzzle. Brother Elias, however, seems more grounded, his piety expressed through diligent work and quiet service within the community. You watch as he finishes his simple chore, maybe arranging firewood or sweeping a courtyard flagstone. His movements unhurried, peaceful. It's the kind of calm you rarely see in the modern world, a tranquility that feels earned through discipline and acceptance of life's simple realities. No deadlines looming, other than the eternal ones, perhaps. No urgent emails pinging, just the quiet satisfaction of a task completed. It makes you wonder if maybe we're all just a little too busy sometimes. Just a thought. The simplicity of his food, the repetitive nature of his tasks, the early hours, it all contributes to a life stripped down to essentials. This isn't a life of luxury, it's a life of focus. And it's this focused energy, channeled through years of practice, that allows for the incredible artistry you're about to see in the scriptorium. He's not just a man, he's a vessel for preserving knowledge and creating beauty, fueled by faith and, well, probably not a lot of sugar or caffeine, which honestly makes the precision of their work even more impressive. Can you imagine trying to draw a perfectly straight line after a breakfast of watery gruel? I certainly couldn't. You observe him finish his simple duties, his shoulders relaxing slightly as the first rays of sunlight begin to slant into the courtyard. His steps are quiet as he makes his way towards the scriptorium, the place where his primary work, the illumination of manuscripts, will begin. He carries a sense of readiness, a quiet determination that has been honed by years of this gentle, repetitive routine. His mind, though perhaps weary from the early hour, is clear, prepared for the intricate and demanding work that lies ahead. He passes other monks, offering silent nods or brief, hushed greetings. The sense of community, though quiet, is strong. They are all on this journey together, supporting each other in their shared endeavor. Entering the scriptorium once more, you see Brother Elias approach his designated workspace. Each monk likely had their own area, perhaps a specific desk or a section of a larger table. These spaces would have been organized for maximum efficiency, with tools and materials within easy reach. You might notice small shelves or niches built into the walls, holding ink pots, quills of various sizes, and perhaps small containers of pigments. The desk itself is likely sturdy and well worn, bearing the marks of countless hours of meticulous labor. The first task at hand is often the preparation of the writing surface, the parchment. In the Byzantine era, parchment, made from animal skins, typically sheep, goat, or calf, was the primary writing material. This was a costly and labor-intensive process in itself. The skins would have been cleaned, stretched, scraped thin, and then treated to create a smooth, durable surface. You might imagine the monks involved in this earlier stage of production, their hands strong and skilled in the demanding work of transforming raw hides into usable pages. Sometimes, the parchment would be further prepared by rubbing it with pumice to create an even smoother surface, or by ruling faint lines with a stylus or lead point to guide the scribe's hand. This ruling, though often barely visible in the finished manuscript, was crucial for ensuring neat and consistent writing. Historians have analyzed surviving manuscripts to understand the different techniques used for preparing parchment and ruling pages, revealing regional variations and evolving practices over time. Brother Elias carefully takes a stack of prepared parchment sheets from a nearby shelf. The pages are likely creamy white or slightly off-white, smooth to the touch. He might run his hand over the surface, checking for any imperfections that could hinder his work. Each sheet represents a significant investment of time and resources, so care and precision are paramount. There's no undo button here, no deleting a mistake with a keystroke. Every mark made on this precious surface is permanent. It makes you appreciate the level of skill and concentration required. Imagine the pressure of knowing that a single slip of the pen could ruin hours, even days of work. It's enough to make your palms sweat just thinking about it. You watch as he arranges the parchment on his desk, perhaps using small weights or clamps to keep the pages steady. The lighting is crucial, and he might adjust his position to take full advantage of the natural light streaming in from the window. You notice how the light catches the subtle texture of the parchment, almost giving it a soft glow. It's a beautiful material in its own right, even before a single word or image is added. It's a testament to the craftsmanship that went into its creation, a silent partner in the artistic process that is about to unfold. With the parchment prepared, Brother Elias turns his attention to his tools. Laid out on his desk, you see a collection of quills, feathers carefully selected and shaped to form pens. These aren't the mass-produced ballpoint pens you might be used to. Each quill is unique, requiring skill and experience to prepare and use effectively. Different types of feathers, from birds like geese, swans, or even crows, would have been chosen depending on the desired thickness and fineness of the line. You might see him carefully testing the point of a quill, perhaps gently running it across a scrap of parchment to ensure it flows smoothly. He might have several quills at hand, each prepared for a different purpose, one for broad strokes, another for fine details, and perhaps a smaller one for corrections. The preparation of a quill was an art in itself, involving careful shaping and hardening of the tip with a penknife. A poorly prepared quill would result in uneven lines, blots, and frustration. It's a skill that has largely been lost in the modern world, replaced by the convenience of mass-produced writing instruments. Imagine having to make your own pen every time you needed to write something. It certainly puts a new perspective on the simple act of jotting down a grocery list. Alongside the quills, you see small pots containing various pigments. These are the colors that will bring the manuscript to life, transforming the plain parchment into a vibrant tapestry of text and image. The pigments themselves would have been derived from a variety of sources: minerals ground into fine powders, plant extracts, and even insects. For example, the brilliant blue often seen in illuminated manuscripts was frequently made from lapis lazuli, a semi-precious stone that had to be imported from distant lands, making it incredibly valuable. Red could come from minerals like ochre or vermilion, or from the insect kermes. Green might be derived from malachite or certain plants. Each color had its own unique properties and required specific techniques for preparation and application. You might see Brother Elias carefully stirring a pigment with a small brush or pestle, ensuring it has the right consistency. Some pigments would need to be mixed with a binder, such as egg white or gum arabic, to help them adhere to the parchment. The process was painstaking and required a deep understanding of the materials. Imagine trying to create a specific shade of blue without a color chart or precise measuring tools. It was all down to experience and intuition. Among the pigments, you might also see a small dish containing gold leaf. This precious material was used to add a touch of splendor and reverence to important parts of the manuscript, such as the initial letters of chapters or depictions of holy figures. The application of gold leaf was a specialized skill, often performed by the most experienced illuminators. Thin sheets of gold would be adhered to the parchment using a special adhesive, and then burnished to a brilliant shine using a smooth stone or bone tool. The way the gold catches the light, seemingly emanating from the page itself, must have been truly captivating. It's a detail that instantly elevates the manuscript from a mere document to a work of art, a testament to the value placed on the text it contained. You watch as Brother Elias gathers the specific quills and pigments he will need for the day's work, carefully arranging them on his desk. There's a sense of ritual in his movements, a quiet reverence for the materials he is about to use. These aren't just tools. They are instruments in a sacred act, the preservation and embellishment of knowledge and faith. The quiet concentration in the scriptorium is palpable, each monk immersed in their own world of letters and images, contributing to the collective effort of creating these magnificent books. It's a slow, deliberate process, a world away from the speed and instantaneity of modern digital communication. And in that slowness, there's a certain beauty, a sense of connection to the past and a dedication to the future. With his materials gathered, Brother Elias selects a finely pointed quill. This one is likely reserved for the delicate work of outlining the initial letters that often adorned the beginnings of important passages. These weren't just plain letters. They were often elaborate works of art in themselves, filled with intricate patterns, swirling vines, and even small figures. Imagine the patience required to draw these complex designs, each curve and flourish executed with precision and a steady hand. There were no erasers here, no easy way to correct a mistake. Every stroke had to be deliberate and accurate. It's a skill that would have taken years to master, honed through countless hours of practice. You might picture young novices in the monastery, diligently practicing their penmanship on scrap parchment, gradually working their way up to the more intricate tasks of illumination. He dips the tip of the quill into a pot of dark, rich ink, likely made from a mixture of soot, gum, and water or wine. The ink flows smoothly onto the parchment as he begins to trace the outline of a large capital letter. You watch as the shape slowly emerges, a testament to his practiced hand. There's a certain rhythm to his movements, a quiet focus that seems to block out the world around him. He isn't just writing, he's creating. Each letter is formed with care, imbued with a sense of purpose. These illuminated initials weren't merely decorative. They served to mark important sections of the text, guiding the reader through the often dense and unbroken blocks of writing. They were visual cues, a way to break up the monotony and add a touch of visual interest to the page. As he works on the initial, you can see the beginnings of intricate details within its form. Perhaps tiny leaves and flowers are woven into the letter's structure, or maybe small animals peek out from its curves. These embellishments weren't arbitrary. They often held symbolic meaning, connecting the text to the natural world or to religious themes. For example, a vine might symbolize the interconnectedness of life, while certain animals could represent specific biblical figures or virtues. The level of detail in these initials could be astounding, sometimes requiring the use of incredibly fine brushes made from the hair of small animals. Imagine trying to paint a tiny, lifelike bird within the confines of a letter. It's a feat of artistry that speaks volumes about the skill and dedication of these monastic illuminators. The process is slow and methodical. Brother Elias pauses frequently, perhaps to reload his quill with ink or to study his reference material, which might be another illuminated manuscript or a set of design templates. There's no rushing here, no sense of urgency. The goal is perfection, or as close to it as humanly possible. Each stroke of the quill is a small act of devotion, a way of honoring the sacred text he is working on. You can almost feel the weight of tradition in the scriptorium, the sense that this is a practice that has been passed down through generations of monks, each adding their own touch while adhering to established styles and conventions. It's a beautiful blend of individual artistry and collective tradition. With the basic outline of the initial letter complete, Brother Elias now turns his attention to the vibrant colors that will bring it to life. Before applying any pigment to the precious parchment, a meticulous process of preparation would have been necessary. Each pigment, ground from minerals, plants, or even insects, had its own unique characteristics and required specific handling. Some might need to be mixed with a binder, such as egg white or gum arabic, to ensure they adhered properly to the parchment and wouldn't smudge or flake over time. You might see Brother Elias carefully measuring out small amounts of powdered pigment and then slowly adding the binder, mixing it with a small pestle or brush until the desired consistency is achieved. This wasn't an exact science. It required experience and an understanding of how each pigment behaved. Imagine the frustration of spending hours grinding a rare mineral only to have the resulting color fade or crack because the binder wasn't mixed correctly. The range of colors available to Byzantine illuminators was surprisingly broad, although some pigments were more expensive and thus used sparingly. The brilliant blues derived from lapis lazuli were particularly prized, often reserved for depicting the robes of the Virgin Mary or other important religious figures. Reds, ranging from the earthy tones of ochre to the vibrant hues of vermilion, would have been used for decorative elements and highlighting. Greens, yellows, and purples, each with their own symbolic associations, would also have found their place in the illuminated page. You might see Brother Elias carefully selecting a fine brush, perhaps made from the hair of a squirrel or ermine, for applying the delicate washes of color. The brushes would have been meticulously cleaned and cared for, as they were essential tools of the trade. As he begins to apply the first layer of color within the outlined initial, you can see the transformation begin. What was once a simple line drawing now starts to take on depth and vibrancy. The colors are applied in thin, even layers, allowing the light to interact with the pigment and create a subtle luminosity. There's a patience and precision to his touch, a sense that each brushstroke is carefully considered. He might use different brushes for different colors and for applying varying levels of detail. Some areas might receive a solid block of color, while others might be subtly shaded to create a sense of volume and dimension. Imagine the concentration required to stay within the delicate outlines of the initial, especially when working with fine details. A slip of the brush could mean hours of painstaking correction. You watch as the intricate patterns within the initial begin to emerge in a riot of color. Leaves might be rendered in varying shades of green, their veins picked out with a finer brush. Flowers might bloom in vibrant reds and blues, their petals delicately outlined. Sometimes, small figures would be incorporated into the design, their robes rendered in rich hues and their faces given expressive features. The level of detail could be astonishing, with tiny dots and lines used to create texture and depth. It's a testament to the artistic skill and the unwavering patience of Brother Elias and his fellow illuminators. They weren't just decorating a page. They were creating a visual feast that would enhance the reader's understanding and appreciation of the text. Now comes a particularly captivating stage, the application of gold leaf. This wasn't always present in every illuminated manuscript, as gold was a precious and expensive material, often reserved for the most important or lavishly produced books, perhaps commissioned by royalty or wealthy patrons. When used, however, it added a breathtaking element of splendor and visual impact to the page, catching the light and seemingly radiating from within. The process of applying gold leaf was a specialized skill. First, a special adhesive known as size would be carefully applied to the areas where the gold was to be placed. This size could be made from various materials, such as gesso, a mixture of plaster and glue, gum arabic, or even egg white, depending on the desired effect and the type of gold being used. The consistency of the size was crucial. It needed to be tacky enough to hold the delicate gold leaf, but not so wet that it would cause the gold to dissolve or wrinkle. You might see Brother Elias carefully applying the size with a fine brush, meticulously outlining the areas that would receive the golden touch. This required a steady hand and a keen eye, as any stray brushstrokes would be visible in the finished product. Once the size was applied and had reached the correct level of tackiness, the gold leaf itself would be carefully transferred. Gold leaf was incredibly thin, almost translucent, and extremely delicate, prone to tearing or sticking to anything it touched. It often came in small squares or rolls, interleaved with thin sheets of paper or parchment to protect it. Brother Elias might use a specialized tool, such as a burnisher's handle or a soft brush, to gently lift a piece of gold leaf and carefully position it over the sized area. This was a delicate operation, requiring immense patience and a steady hand. Even a slight breath could send the fragile gold fluttering away. Once the gold leaf was in place, it needed to be burnished to achieve its characteristic shine. This was done using a smooth, hard tool, often made of agate, bone, or ivory. Brother Elias would gently rub the surface of the gold leaf with the burnisher, applying even pressure. This process smoothed out any imperfections in the gold and caused it to adhere firmly to the parchment, creating a brilliant, reflective surface. The burnishing process could take some time, especially for larger areas of gold. You can imagine the quiet concentration in the scriptorium as multiple monks carefully burnished their gold leaf. The only sound perhaps the soft rubbing of the smooth stones against the precious metal. The effect of the gold leaf was truly stunning. It added a sense of richness and importance to the illuminated letters and illustrations, drawing the eye and highlighting key elements of the text. In religious manuscripts, the gold often symbolized the divine light or the glory of God. It was a visual representation of the sacred nature of the words on the page. Even today, the gleam of gold leaf in an ancient manuscript has a captivating quality, a testament to the enduring beauty and value of this precious material. It's a detail that instantly elevates the manuscript to something truly special, a treasure to be admired and preserved for centuries. Beyond the elaborate initial letters, Byzantine illuminated manuscripts often featured intricate illustrations that accompanied and enriched the text. These weren't just random decorations. They served to visually explain or elaborate upon the narrative, making complex stories and theological concepts more accessible and engaging for the reader. Imagine turning a page and encountering a vibrant depiction of a biblical scene, a portrait of a saint, or a detailed diagram illustrating a scientific principle. These illustrations were integral to the overall purpose of the manuscript, enhancing its educational and devotional value. The process of creating these illustrations was a meticulous one, often undertaken by monks who possessed specialized artistic skills. After the text had been written and the initial letters illuminated, spaces would have been left on the pages for the illustrations. The artist would then begin by sketching the outline of the scene or figure, often using a stylus or a light ink. These preliminary drawings served as a guide for the subsequent application of color and detail. You might see Brother Elias carefully sketching the folds of a garment or the expression on a face, his lines light and tentative at this stage. Once the basic outline was complete, the artist would begin to apply layers of color, working from broad washes to finer details. The same pigments used for the initials would have been employed here, carefully mixed to achieve the desired hues and shades. The techniques used could vary, from flat areas of color to more nuanced shading and highlighting to create a sense of depth and volume. Imagine the patience required to build up these illustrations layer by layer, waiting for each application of paint to dry before adding the next. There was no quick-drying paint in those days. It was a slow and deliberate process. The subject matter of these illustrations varied widely depending on the type of manuscript. In religious texts, you might find scenes from the Bible, the lives of saints, or depictions of theological concepts. In secular works, such as histories or scientific treatises, the illustrations would be tailored to the content, perhaps depicting historical figures, geographical landscapes, or anatomical diagrams. Regardless of the subject, the aim was to enhance the reader's understanding and engagement with the text. Often, These illustrations weren't just literal depictions. They also incorporated symbolic elements. Colors, gestures, and the arrangement of figures could all carry specific meanings that would have been understood by the contemporary reader. For example, the color blue often symbolized the heavens or the Virgin Mary, while gold could represent divinity or royalty. Understanding these visual codes adds another layer of appreciation to the artistry of Byzantine illumination. Historians continue to study the iconography and symbolism within these illustrations, gleaning insights into the beliefs and cultural values of the time. You watch as Brother Elias carefully adds details to his illustration, perhaps a delicate pattern on a robe or the subtle expression in the eyes of a figure. His focus is intense, his hand moving with practiced precision. It's clear that this is more than just a job for him. It's a form of devotion, a way of using his artistic talents to glorify God and preserve knowledge for future generations. The quiet hum of creativity in the scriptorium is almost palpable, a testament to the dedication and skill of these unsung artists of the Byzantine world. As Brother Elias meticulously adds color to his illustration, you might notice him occasionally reaching for a small container holding a shimmering, golden liquid. This isn't gold leaf in its solid form, but rather shell gold or liquid gold, another way to add a touch of precious metal to the manuscript. Shell gold was made by grinding gold into a fine powder and then suspending it in a binder, such as gum arabic or honey. This created a paint-like substance that could be applied with a brush, offering a different texture and effect compared to solid gold leaf. It often appears less lustrous than burnished gold leaf, but still provides a beautiful metallic sheen. The application of shell gold required a delicate touch. Because the gold particles were suspended in a liquid, it could be prone to settling or streaking if not handled carefully. Brother Elias might gently stir the liquid gold with his brush before applying it to the parchment, ensuring an even distribution of the precious metal. He might use it to highlight details in the illustrations, such as the halos around saints' heads, the embellishments on royal garments, or the intricate patterns in architectural elements. The subtle shimmer of the shell gold would have caught the light, adding a touch of ethereal beauty to the artwork. Sometimes, shell gold was used in conjunction with gold leaf, creating a richer and more varied visual effect. For example, large areas might be covered in burnished gold leaf for maximum impact, while finer details or outlines could be rendered in the more fluid shell gold. This allowed the artist to play with different textures and levels of reflectivity, adding depth and complexity to the illuminated page. You watch as Brother Elias carefully applies a thin line of shell gold to the edge of a painted border. His brushstrokes are precise and controlled, leaving behind a delicate trail of shimmering gold. It's a small detail, but it adds a touch of elegance and refinement to the overall composition. It speaks to the high level of craftsmanship and attention to detail that characterized Byzantine illumination. These weren't just mass-produced books. They were often unique works of art, each page a testament to the skill and dedication of the monks who created them. The use of gold, in both leaf and liquid form, wasn't merely decorative. It also held symbolic significance, representing the divine, the heavenly realm, and the preciousness of the knowledge contained within the manuscript. The gleam of gold would have drawn the reader's eye to important passages or figures, emphasizing their significance. It was a visual language that reinforced the spiritual and intellectual content of the text. It's fascinating to consider the sheer value of the materials used in some of these illuminated manuscripts. The cost of parchment, pigments, especially rare ones like lapis lazuli, and gold would have been substantial. This highlights the importance placed on these books, often commissioned by wealthy individuals, the church, or the imperial court. They were treasures, symbols of power, piety, and learning, carefully guarded and passed down through generations. The very act of illuminating a manuscript with such precious materials was an investment, a way of ensuring its longevity and its impact on those who would read it. As the illuminated initial and perhaps a portion of an accompanying illustration begin to take shape under Brother Elias's skilled hand, his focus remains unwavering. However, the creation of a manuscript wasn't solely the work of a single individual. Within the scriptorium, there would have been a division of labor, with different monks specializing in various aspects of the process. While Brother Elias might be particularly adept at illumination, others would have been responsible for the crucial task of actually writing the main body of the text. Imagine another monk, perhaps seated at a nearby desk, his quill steadily gliding across the parchment, forming neat rows of elegant script. This was a demanding task in itself, requiring not only excellent penmanship but also a deep understanding of the language and the text being copied. Scribes had to be meticulous, ensuring accuracy and consistency throughout the often lengthy manuscripts. Mistakes were painstakingly corrected by scraping away the errant ink with a knife or carefully overwriting it. It's a far cry from hitting the backspace key, isn't it? One slip could mean significant delays and a less than perfect final product. The script used in Byzantine manuscripts evolved over time, with different styles emerging in different periods and regions. Early manuscripts might have employed a more formal, majuscule script, all capital letters, while later periods saw the development of more cursive, minuscule scripts, lowercase letters, that allowed for faster writing and more efficient use of parchment. The choice of script would often depend on the type of text and the intended audience. For example, liturgical books might be written in a more formal script to convey a sense of solemnity, while personal devotional texts could employ a more informal hand. Historians study these different scripts, known as paleography, to help date and locate manuscripts and to understand the scribal practices of the time. The layout of the page was also carefully considered. Scribes would rule lines on the parchment to ensure that the text was straight and evenly spaced. Margins were left for annotations, glosses, and, of course, the illuminations. The relationship between the text and the images was a crucial aspect of manuscript design, with the illustrations often placed strategically to complement and enhance the written word. You might see Brother Elias occasionally glancing at the text being copied by another monk, ensuring that his illustrations align with the narrative. The process of creating a complete illuminated manuscript was a collaborative effort, a testament to the skills and dedication of the entire monastic community. While the illuminator brought the page to life with color and gold, the scribe laid the foundation with carefully written text. Other monks might have been involved in preparing the parchment, grinding pigments, or binding the finished pages into a book. Each role was essential, contributing to the creation of a work that was both a vessel of knowledge and a work of art. It highlights the interconnectedness of the monastic life, where individual talents were harnessed for the greater good of the community and the preservation of learning. Once the individual pages of text and illumination were completed, the next crucial stage in the creation of a manuscript was the binding. This was the process of gathering the loose sheets and securing them together to form a codex, the book form we are familiar with today, as opposed to the scrolls that were common in earlier times. The binding was essential for protecting the delicate parchment pages and ensuring the longevity of the manuscript. This was often a specialized task, undertaken by monks with particular skills in craftsmanship. The first step in binding was to gather the quires or gatherings, groups of folded parchment sheets that would form sections of the book. The number of sheets in a quire could vary, but typically they consisted of 4 sheets folded in the middle to create 8 leaves, 16 pages. These quires would then be arranged in the correct order according to the text. To ensure the quires were assembled properly, scribes often added catchwords at the end of each quire, the first word of the following quire written at the bottom of the last page. These catchwords acted as a guide for the binder. You might imagine a monk carefully checking these catchwords, ensuring that the flow of the text was continuous as he assembled the quires. Once the quires were in order, they would be sewn together. This was a skilled process that involved using a needle and thread, often linen or hemp, to stitch the quires together through the folds along the spine. The sewing needed to be strong and secure to hold the book block together. Different sewing techniques were used depending on the size and style of the book. Sometimes the quires would be sewn onto raised bands of leather or cord that ran across the spine, providing additional support and creating the characteristic raised ridges seen on the spines of many old books. After the book block was sewn, the next step was to attach the covers. These were typically made of wooden boards, chosen for their strength and durability. The boards would be cut to the appropriate size and then attached to the sewn book block using the ends of the sewing threads and sometimes additional cords or leather straps. The process required precision to ensure that the covers were securely fastened and that the book opened and closed properly. You might see a monk carefully trimming the edges of the wooden boards to fit the book block perfectly. The covers often provided further protection and could also be decorated. They might be covered in leather, which could be plain or elaborately tooled with designs. Sometimes metal fittings such as clasps, bosses, ornamental knobs, and corner pieces were added for both decoration and to protect the book from wear and tear. For particularly valuable manuscripts, the covers might even be adorned with jewels or ivory carvings. Imagine the weight and feel of such a book in your hands, a tangible connection to the past, a treasure carefully crafted and meant to last for centuries. The binding was not just a functional necessity. It was an integral part of the manuscript's overall presentation and its value as a physical object. With the manuscript now bound, the process of illumination might not yet be entirely finished. Sometimes, further decorative elements were added to enhance the beauty and visual appeal of the completed book. These could include elaborately decorated borders surrounding the text and illustrations, or even full-page miniatures, intricate paintings that stood independently of the text. These additions were often the work of highly skilled illuminators like Brother Elias, adding another layer of artistry to the already impressive creation. Borders could range from simple lines and geometric patterns to elaborate designs incorporating foliage, animals, and even human figures. These borders served to frame the text and illustrations, creating a visual harmony on the page. The colors and motifs used in the borders often complemented the colors and themes within the illuminations and the text itself, creating a cohesive visual experience for the reader. You might see Brother Elias carefully painting a delicate vine that winds its way around the edge of a page, its leaves and tendrils rendered in exquisite detail. Full-page miniatures were often placed at the beginning of important sections of the text, such as the opening of a new book of the Bible or the start of a significant narrative. These miniatures could depict key scenes from the text, portraits of important figures, or symbolic representations of religious or philosophical concepts. They were essentially standalone works of art within the manuscript, showcasing the illuminator's skill in composition, color, and detail. Imagine turning the page and being confronted with a vibrant and detailed painting that brings the story to life in a powerful way. These miniatures could be incredibly detailed, sometimes containing numerous figures and intricate landscapes, all rendered on a relatively small scale. The creation of these additional decorative elements required the same level of skill and patience as the initial illuminations. Brother Elias would have carefully planned his designs, perhaps making preliminary sketches on separate pieces of parchment before transferring them to the manuscript page. He would then apply layers of color, often using fine brushes to achieve intricate details and subtle shading. Gold leaf and shell gold might also be incorporated to add richness and visual interest. The inclusion of elaborate borders and full-page miniatures further increased the value and prestige of the manuscript. These were often features found in books commissioned by wealthy patrons or intended for important religious institutions. They transformed the manuscript from a mere repository of text into a cherished object, a work of art that was both beautiful to behold and spiritually or intellectually enriching. The level of detail and artistry in these illuminated manuscripts provides a fascinating glimpse into the cultural values and artistic sensibilities of the Byzantine era. They were not just books. They were treasures, meticulously crafted and intended to endure for generations. Within the quiet scriptorium, the quality of light played a crucial role in the delicate work of manuscript illumination. Natural light was the primary source, streaming in through the large windows. You might observe how Brother Elias carefully positions his work to take advantage of the available light, perhaps even adjusting his seat as the sun moves across the sky throughout the day. The direction and intensity of the light could significantly affect how he perceived the colors he was using and the fine details he was painting. Too little light would strain his eyes and make it difficult to see clearly, while harsh, direct sunlight could create glare and distort his perception of color. Monasteries were often designed with the scriptorium's lighting in mind. Large windows, sometimes facing north to provide a more consistent and diffused light, were a common feature. The windows might have been fitted with translucent materials, such as oiled parchment or thin panes of glass, if the monastery was wealthy enough, to soften the light and reduce glare. You can imagine the soft, even illumination that would have filled the scriptorium on a bright day, creating an ideal environment for intricate work. However, the availability of natural light was limited by the time of day and the seasons. During the shorter days of winter or on cloudy days, the light would have been much dimmer, making the work more challenging. In these situations, artificial light sources would have been necessary. Oil lamps or candles, made from beeswax or animal fat, would have been used to supplement the natural light. You might see a young novice carefully tending to these lamps, ensuring they provided a steady and sufficient glow without creating too much smoke or flickering that could distract the illuminators. The light from these sources would have been warm and somewhat dim compared to modern electric lighting, casting long shadows and perhaps making it difficult to discern fine details. Working by candlelight or lamplight for extended periods would have been incredibly taxing on the eyes. The flickering flame could cause eye strain and headaches, and the limited illumination would have made it harder to achieve the precision required for manuscript illumination. This makes the level of detail in some Byzantine manuscripts even more remarkable, a testament to the monks' dedication and perseverance despite the challenging working conditions. The importance of good lighting is a constant throughout history for any kind of detailed work. Even today, artists and craftspeople carefully consider the light in their studios. For the Byzantine monks, however, it wasn't just about practical considerations. The quality of light might also have held symbolic meaning. Light was often associated with divine knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. The act of illuminating a manuscript, of bringing light and color to the sacred text, could have been seen as a metaphor for illuminating the soul with divine truth. You watch as a beam of sunlight catches the gold leaf on Brother Elias's current page, making it shimmer brilliantly. The way the light interacts with the precious materials must have been a constant source of inspiration and wonder. It highlights the beauty and value of the work being done, a reminder of the precious knowledge and faith being preserved within these walls. As Brother Elias continues his meticulous work, you might observe moments of quiet contemplation and prayer interspersed throughout his day. The monastic life was deeply intertwined with religious devotion, and the creation of illuminated manuscripts was often seen as an act of piety, a way of glorifying God and spreading his word. The scriptorium wasn't just a workshop. It was a space imbued with a sense of the sacred. Throughout the day, the monastery bells would toll at regular intervals, marking the hours for the divine office, the cycle of prayers and liturgical services that structured the monks' lives. When the bell rang, Brother Elias, along with the other monks in the scriptorium, would likely pause their work and gather in the chapel for prayer. These moments of communal worship provided a spiritual rhythm to the day, breaking the concentration required for the demanding task of illumination and refocusing their minds on their faith. You can imagine the shift in atmosphere as the quiet scratching of quills gives way to the resonant chanting of hymns and the recitation of prayers. These periods of prayer weren't just obligatory. They were an integral part of the monks' spiritual nourishment, providing solace, inspiration, and a sense of connection to their faith and their community. The themes and readings of the liturgical services might even have influenced the imagery and symbolism that found its way into the illuminated manuscripts. For example, a passage from the Gospels read during Mass might inspire a particular scene in an illustration. Beyond the formal prayer times, individual monks might also engage in private devotion throughout the day. You might see Brother Elias pausing his work to make the sign of the cross or to whisper a silent prayer. The act of illuminating a sacred text could itself be seen as a form of prayer, a meditative process of bringing beauty and reverence to the Word of God. The slow, deliberate nature of the work, the focus required, and the intention behind it could all contribute to a sense of spiritual connection. The monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience also played a significant role in shaping the environment of the scriptorium. The absence of personal ambition and the dedication to a shared purpose fostered a sense of humility and cooperation. The focus was on the work itself and its contribution to the greater good of the monastery and the church, rather than on individual fame or fortune. This selfless dedication likely contributed to the high quality and spiritual depth of Byzantine illuminated manuscripts. It's interesting to consider the level of faith and commitment that underpinned this work. These monks weren't just skilled artisans. They were individuals deeply devoted to their religious beliefs, and their art was an expression of that devotion. The beauty and intricacy of their illuminations were not merely for aesthetic pleasure, but were intended to inspire awe, to educate, and to deepen the viewer's understanding of the sacred texts. In a world where literacy was not widespread, these visual representations played a crucial role in communicating religious narratives and theological ideas. Within the monastic community, the knowledge and skills required for manuscript illumination were often passed down through generations of monks. Younger novices would learn from more experienced members, gradually acquiring the techniques of calligraphy, pigment preparation, drawing, and gilding. The scriptorium served not only as a workshop, but also as a place of learning and mentorship. You might observe a younger monk, perhaps in his late teens or early 20s, carefully watching Brother Elias as he works, his eyes wide with attention. He might be tasked with simpler duties initially, such as grinding pigments, preparing parchment, or cleaning quills. These tasks would provide him with a foundational understanding of the materials and processes involved in manuscript production. As he demonstrated diligence and aptitude, he would gradually be entrusted with more complex tasks, such as practicing calligraphy or assisting with the less intricate parts of illumination. The learning process would have been gradual and hands-on. Novices would likely spend countless hours practicing their penmanship on scrap parchment, striving to achieve the elegant and consistent script of their mentors. They would learn about the different types of quills and how to prepare them properly for various tasks. They would also be taught the secrets of pigment preparation, learning which minerals, plants, or insects yielded which colors and how to mix them with binders to achieve the desired consistency and vibrancy. Drawing and illumination techniques would also be imparted through observation and practice. Younger monks might begin by copying simple designs and gradually progress to more complex figures and scenes. They would learn about the principles of composition, color theory, though perhaps not explicitly formulated as such, and the use of light and shadow to create depth and dimension. The application of gold leaf, being a particularly specialized skill, would likely be taught later in their training, once they had developed a steady hand and a keen eye for detail. The relationship between the experienced illuminator and the novice would have been one of mentorship and guidance. The older monk would share his knowledge and expertise, patiently correcting mistakes and offering encouragement. This transmission of skills ensured the continuity of the artistic tradition within the monastery. The scriptorium, therefore, was not just a place of work, but also a vital center for the preservation and propagation of knowledge and artistic techniques. It's fascinating to consider the dedication required for this kind of apprenticeship. Years of patient practice and diligent learning were necessary to master the art of manuscript illumination. There were no shortcuts or quick online tutorials. The knowledge was passed down directly from person to person, through observation, imitation, and hands-on experience. This intimate connection between teacher and student likely fostered not only artistic skill, but also a sense of community and shared purpose within the scriptorium. The legacy of these skilled illuminators lives on in the beautiful manuscripts that have survived to this day, testaments to their dedication and the enduring power of human artistry passed down through generations. While the primary focus within the scriptorium was the creation of religious texts, gospels, psalters, lives of saints, and theological treatises, Byzantine monasteries also played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting classical knowledge. You might find other monks within the scriptorium diligently copying the works of ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, historians, and scientists. These texts were seen as valuable sources of wisdom and learning, and their preservation was considered an important intellectual endeavor. The process of copying these classical texts was just as meticulous as the illumination of religious manuscripts. Scribes would carefully transcribe the ancient Greek or Latin words onto new parchment, striving for accuracy and legibility. While these texts might not have received the same elaborate illumination as religious works, they were nonetheless treated with respect and care. Sometimes, simple decorative elements or diagrams would be added to enhance understanding. The preservation of classical learning within the Byzantine Empire was a significant contribution to the intellectual history of the West. During periods of upheaval and decline in Western Europe, Byzantine monasteries served as safe havens for these ancient texts, ensuring that they were not lost to posterity. Later, during the Renaissance, these rediscovered manuscripts played a vital role in the revival of classical learning and culture in Europe. Within the scriptorium, therefore, you might witness a fascinating juxtaposition of the sacred and the secular. On one desk, Brother Elias might be carefully painting a scene from the life of Christ, while on another, a different monk might be painstakingly copying the philosophical arguments of Aristotle or the historical accounts of Herodotus. This reflects the broader intellectual landscape of the Byzantine world, where faith and reason were not necessarily seen as mutually exclusive, but rather as complementary paths to knowledge. The motivations for preserving classical texts were varied. Some monks saw value in the philosophical and ethical insights offered by ancient thinkers. Others were interested in the scientific and mathematical knowledge contained in these works. And some simply recognized the importance of preserving the literary and linguistic heritage of the past. Whatever the reasons, the dedication of Byzantine monks to this task ensured that these invaluable texts survived through centuries of turmoil. The scriptorium, in this context, becomes a symbol of the enduring power of knowledge and the commitment of individuals to its preservation. In a world without printing presses or digital archives, the slow and painstaking work of copying manuscripts was the primary means of transmitting ideas across time and space. The quiet dedication of these Byzantine monks in their scriptoria helped to lay the foundation for much of the intellectual and cultural heritage that we still value today. The creation of illuminated manuscripts was not always a purely internal affair within the monastery walls. Sometimes wealthy individuals, members of the imperial court, or other religious institutions would commission specific manuscripts. This patronage played a significant role in supporting the work of the scriptoria and often influenced the style and lavishness of the final product. When a commission was received, there would likely be detailed instructions outlining the content of the manuscript, the desired size and format, and the level of illumination expected. The patron might specify particular scenes to be illustrated, the inclusion of their family crest or portrait, or the use of specific colors and precious materials like gold and silver. These commissions provided a vital source of income for the monastery and allowed the scriptorium to undertake more ambitious and elaborate projects. The relationship between the patron and the monastic scriptorium could vary. Sometimes, the patron would have a close personal connection to the monastery, perhaps having endowed it with land or resources. In other cases, it might be a more formal arrangement, with contracts outlining the terms of the commission and the agreed-upon price. Regardless of the nature of the relationship, these commissions often resulted in some of the most magnificent illuminated manuscripts that have survived to this day. The influence of the patron's tastes and preferences can often be seen in the style and iconography of the illuminations. For example, a manuscript commissioned by a member of the imperial family might feature more opulent decoration and imagery associated with royalty. A book intended for a particularly devout individual might emphasize certain religious themes or the lives of specific saints. The illuminators, while adhering to established artistic traditions, would also need to accommodate the wishes of their patrons. The process of fulfilling a commission would involve close collaboration between the scribes and the illuminators. Spaces would be carefully planned in the manuscript layout to accommodate the requested illustrations. Brother Elias and his fellow artists would need to understand the text and the patron's requirements to create illuminations that were both visually stunning and relevant to the content. This might involve studying other manuscripts or consulting with scholars within the monastery to ensure accuracy and appropriate symbolism. The completion of a commissioned manuscript would have been a significant event, marked by a sense of accomplishment and the anticipation of delivering the finished work to the patron. These manuscripts were often highly prized possessions, symbols of wealth, piety, and learning. They might be displayed prominently, used in religious ceremonies, or passed down as heirlooms through generations. The act of commissioning such a book was not just about acquiring a text. It was about investing in a work of art and supporting the intellectual and spiritual endeavors of the monastic community. The materials used in the creation of illuminated manuscripts, such as parchment and pigments, often had fascinating and sometimes far-reaching origins. The acquisition and preparation of these materials were integral parts of the manuscript production process, and they highlight the interconnectedness of the Byzantine world. Parchment, as mentioned earlier, was typically made from animal skins. This required a significant number of animals and a skilled process of cleaning, stretching, and treating the hides. Monasteries often had their own livestock or established trade relationships to ensure a steady supply of high-quality parchment. The type of animal skin used could vary depending on local availability and cost, with finer vellum, made from calfskin, being particularly prized for its smooth surface and delicate appearance. You might imagine monks overseeing the preparation of these skins, a process that would have involved considerable labor and expertise. The pigments used to create the vibrant colors in the illuminations also came from diverse sources. Some were locally sourced, such as ochre for earth tones or pigments derived from common plants. However, other more vibrant and precious colors required trade with distant lands. The brilliant blue of lapis lazuli, for instance, was imported from mines in Afghanistan, traveling along long and sometimes perilous trade routes. This highlights the Byzantine Empire's extensive trade networks and its ability to access luxury goods from across the known world. Other pigments might have come from more unusual sources. For example, the vibrant red of vermilion was derived from the mineral cinnabar, which could be found in various parts of the Byzantine Empire and beyond. A rich purple dye, highly prized and often associated with royalty, could be extracted from certain types of shellfish. Even insects played a role, with the Kermes insect yielding a crimson dye that was used in illuminated manuscripts. You might see Brother Elias carefully grinding these raw materials, transforming them into the fine powders that would then be mixed with binders to create paint. The acquisition of these materials was not always straightforward. Trade routes could be disrupted by political instability or natural disasters, and the cost of rare pigments like lapis lazuli could fluctuate significantly. Monasteries often had administrators or procurators who were responsible for managing the scriptorium supplies, establishing trade contacts, and ensuring a consistent flow of necessary materials. The value of the materials used in illuminated manuscripts underscores the importance placed on these books. They were not simply texts. They were repositories of knowledge and faith, crafted from precious and often exotic materials. The very act of creating such a manuscript was an investment, a testament to the dedication and resources of the individuals and institutions involved. The beauty and longevity of these illuminated pages are a direct result of the quality of the materials used and the skill with which they were handled. Beyond the practical aspects of their creation, Byzantine illuminated manuscripts were often imbued with layers of hidden symbolism, adding depth and meaning to both the text and the illustrations. These visual codes would have been readily understood by the contemporary viewer, enriching their experience of the manuscript on multiple levels. Colors, for instance, often carried specific symbolic associations. As mentioned earlier, blue was frequently linked to the heavens, the Virgin Mary, and spiritual purity. Gold, with its radiant sheen, often represented divinity, royalty, and the eternal. Red could symbolize passion, martyrdom, or even earthly power. Green was often associated with nature, growth, and resurrection. Understanding these color codes allows for a deeper appreciation of the illuminator's artistic choices and the intended message of the page. You might notice Brother Elias carefully selecting a particular shade of blue for the Virgin's robe, not just for its aesthetic appeal, but also for its symbolic significance. Gestures and the positioning of figures within the illustrations could also convey specific meanings. A raised hand might signify blessing or authority, while a bowed head could indicate humility or reverence. The way figures interacted with each other, their relative sizes, and their placement within the composition could all contribute to the narrative and the underlying message of the scene. For example, a larger figure placed centrally might indicate their importance, while smaller figures in the background could represent secondary characters or the setting of the scene. Even seemingly decorative elements, such as the types of plants or animals depicted in borders or within initials, could hold symbolic weight. Vines might represent the interconnectedness of life or the lineage of Christ. Certain animals were associated with specific biblical figures or virtues. For example, a dove often symbolized the Holy Spirit, while a lion could represent strength or royalty. The careful observer would have recognized these visual cues, adding another layer of understanding to the illuminated page. The use of geometric patterns and ornamental motifs also often carried symbolic meaning, drawing on long-standing artistic traditions and cultural associations. Interlacing patterns, for example, could represent eternity or the interconnectedness of all things. The specific shapes and arrangements of these patterns were often not arbitrary but were chosen for their symbolic resonance. Historians and art scholars continue to study the complex symbolism within Byzantine illuminated manuscripts, seeking to unravel the layers of meaning embedded within these works of art. Understanding these visual codes provides valuable insights into the religious beliefs, cultural values, and artistic conventions of the Byzantine era. It reminds us that these manuscripts were not just beautiful objects, but also powerful tools for communication and spiritual reflection, designed to engage the viewer on both an aesthetic and an intellectual level. The quiet dedication of the illuminators in carefully crafting these symbolic details speaks to the profound importance placed on conveying meaning and truth through their art. Within the hierarchical structure of the Byzantine monastery, the monks who labored in the scriptorium held a unique position. They were not simply manual laborers, but rather skilled artisans and often highly learned individuals. Their work was considered a vital service to the community and the wider church, contributing to the preservation of knowledge and the dissemination of religious teachings. The social status of a scribe or illuminator within the monastery could vary depending on their experience, skill, and seniority. A young novice just learning the basics would naturally occupy a lower rung than an older, highly respected master illuminator like Brother Elias. Those who demonstrated exceptional talent and dedication might rise to positions of greater responsibility within the scriptorium, perhaps overseeing the work of others or being entrusted with the most important and prestigious commissions. Scribes, who were responsible for the accurate copying of texts, were highly valued for their literacy and their meticulous attention to detail. In a world where literacy was not widespread, the ability to read and write fluently was a significant skill. Scribes often possessed a deep understanding of the languages they were working with, whether Greek, Latin, or other languages of the Byzantine world. They were the guardians of the written word, ensuring its accurate transmission across generations. Illuminators, in addition to literacy, possessed artistic talents that were equally valued. Their ability to bring the text to life through vibrant colors, intricate designs, and compelling imagery was seen as a way to enhance the reader's understanding and appreciation of the content. The most skilled illuminators were highly sought after, and their work could significantly increase the value and prestige of a manuscript. While the monastic vows emphasized humility and the renunciation of worldly ambition, there was undoubtedly a sense of pride and accomplishment associated with producing a beautiful and accurate manuscript. The monks who worked in the scriptorium were contributing to a larger purpose, and their skills were recognized and appreciated within the community. Their labor was not just a job. It was a form of spiritual practice and a way of using their God-given talents for the benefit of others. It's important to remember that the monastic life was structured around communal living and shared responsibilities. While monks might have specialized roles within the scriptorium, they were also expected to participate in the daily routines of the monastery, including prayer, manual labor, and communal meals. The scriptorium was just one aspect of their multifaceted lives. Historians still debate the extent to which individual scribes and illuminators were recognized for their work. While some manuscripts do contain colophons, brief inscriptions at the end of the text, that name the scribe, illuminators are less frequently identified. This may reflect the monastic emphasis on humility and the focus on the collective effort rather than individual fame. However, the distinct styles and techniques that can be identified in different manuscripts suggest that individual artists did develop their own unique approaches. The precious illuminated manuscripts created within the Byzantine scriptoria were not immune to the various challenges and dangers of the medieval world. Fire, for instance, posed a constant threat to these irreplaceable works. Monasteries, often relying on candles and oil lamps for light and wood for heating, were vulnerable to accidental fires that could quickly spread through their timber-framed buildings and destroy valuable contents, including entire libraries of manuscripts. Imagine the devastation of losing centuries of accumulated knowledge and artistry in a single blaze. Monks would have taken precautions, such as storing manuscripts in stone or brick rooms and exercising extreme caution with open flames, but accidents could still happen. Another significant danger was theft. Illuminated manuscripts, with their valuable parchment, precious pigments, and sometimes gold and jewels in their bindings, were highly prized objects. In times of political instability or during raids and invasions, monasteries were vulnerable to looting, and manuscripts could be stolen and either sold or destroyed. The loss of these texts not only represented a cultural tragedy, but also a significant financial blow to the monastic community. To protect their valuable books, monasteries often kept them locked away in secure chests or rooms, sometimes even chained to shelves to prevent them from being easily removed. The very materials from which the manuscripts were made were also susceptible to deterioration over time. Parchment, while durable, could be damaged by humidity, extreme temperatures, and pests like insects and rodents. Pigments could fade or flake, and gold leaf could tarnish. The bindings, often made of leather and wood, could also decay or be damaged by wear and tear. The monks in the scriptorium played a crucial role not only in creating manuscripts but also in their ongoing care and preservation. They would have been responsible for storing them properly, protecting them from dampness and pests, and perhaps even undertaking repairs to damaged pages or bindings. The turbulent political history of the Byzantine Empire also presented dangers to the manuscripts. Wars, civil unrest, and the rise and fall of different regimes could lead to the destruction or dispersal of monastic libraries. During periods of iconoclasm, for example, when the use of religious images was prohibited, many illuminated manuscripts containing depictions of saints and biblical scenes were destroyed or defaced. The survival of so many Byzantine illuminated manuscripts to the present day is a testament to the dedication of the monks who safeguarded them through centuries of upheaval. It's sobering to consider the fragility of these cultural treasures and the constant vigilance required to protect them. Unlike digital files that can be easily backed up and copied, each illuminated manuscript was a unique and irreplaceable object. Its survival depended on the care and dedication of those who understood its value. The quiet work of Brother Elias and his fellow monks in creating these beautiful books was only part of the story. Their efforts to preserve them for future generations were equally important. Within the scriptorium, the gentle scratching of quills and the soft mixing of pigments would have been the most common sounds. However, the atmosphere wasn't always one of absolute silence. There would have been hushed conversations between monks discussing their work, sharing techniques, or consulting on matters related to the text or the illuminations. A more experienced monk might offer guidance to a novice, or two scribes might compare their copies to ensure accuracy. The turning of parchment pages would have been another frequent sound, a soft rustling as the monks progressed through their work. The occasional cough or sigh might break the concentration, a reminder of the human element within this dedicated space. Depending on the time of day and the proximity to other parts of the monastery, faint sounds from outside might also drift in: the distant chanting from the chapel, the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer, or the sounds of activity in the gardens or kitchens. On certain occasions, there might have been more animated discussions, particularly when dealing with complex theological interpretations or when planning the iconography of an illustration. Monks with different areas of expertise might gather to share their knowledge and insights, ensuring that the manuscript was both accurate and visually compelling. You might imagine a small group gathered around a desk, poring over an older manuscript or a set of reference materials, their voices low and earnest as they debated the best way to depict a particular scene. The preparation of materials would also have generated its own set of sounds. The grinding of pigments with a mortar and pestle, the scraping of parchment, or the sharpening of quills would have added to the sonic tapestry of the scriptorium. These were the sounds of creation, the tangible evidence of the work in progress. It's interesting to contrast this soundscape with the often noisy and chaotic world outside the monastery walls. The scriptorium offered a sanctuary of relative peace and quiet, a space conducive to focused work and contemplation. The gentle hum of activity was a constant reminder of the shared purpose and the dedication of the community to the task at hand. Even the quality of light within the scriptorium might have subtly influenced the sounds. The creaking of wooden shutters being adjusted to control the light, or the soft sputter of an oil lamp on a dim day, would have been part of the sensory experience of working in this space. The absence of modern distractions, no ringing telephones, no chattering televisions, no constant stream of digital notifications must have contributed significantly to the atmosphere of concentration and tranquility. The sounds of the scriptorium were the sounds of a community engaged in meaningful work, a gentle symphony of intellect and artistry unfolding at a deliberate pace. It's a soundscape that evokes a sense of calm and focused energy, a world away from the often frenetic pace of modern life. The simple sustenance that fueled the monks' demanding work in the scriptorium was a far cry from the elaborate meals you might be accustomed to. Their diet was generally plain and frugal, in accordance with their vows of poverty and the ascetic principles of monastic life. The focus was on providing adequate nourishment to sustain their labor without indulging in excessive luxury or distraction. A typical meal might consist of bread, often made from coarse grains, perhaps accompanied by a simple stew of vegetables and legumes. Cheese made from sheep or goat's milk might be available on occasion, providing a source of protein. Fruits, when in season and locally available, would have been a welcome addition to their diet. Meat was generally avoided, although some monastic rules might have allowed it for the sick or elderly. Drink was usually simple as well. Water was the staple, often drawn from a well within the monastery grounds or a nearby spring. Wine, often watered down, might have been permitted in moderation, particularly as part of religious observances or for its practical benefits in terms of hygiene in a time when water sources weren't always safe. Meals were typically taken in silence in the refectory, the monastic dining hall, often accompanied by the reading of scripture or other edifying texts. This practice reinforced the spiritual focus of the monastic life and discouraged idle chatter. The act of eating was seen as a necessity to sustain their work and prayer, rather than a source of pleasure or social interaction. Within the scriptorium, Brother Elias and his fellow monks might have taken brief breaks for a small midday meal or a piece of bread to sustain their concentration. There wouldn't have been elaborate lunch breaks or coffee runs as you might know them. The focus was on maintaining the flow of work with minimal interruption. The preparation of food for the monastery was often another task undertaken by the monks themselves, with different individuals or groups taking on responsibilities for the gardens, the kitchen, or the bakery. This ensured that the community was self-sufficient and that the quality of their food was in line with their principles. It's interesting to consider how this simple diet might have affected the monks' energy levels and their ability to focus on the intricate work of manuscript illumination. While it might seem restrictive by modern standards, their bodies would have adapted to this way of eating, and the lack of heavy, processed foods might have actually contributed to a clearer mind and greater concentration. The regularity and simplicity of their meals also provided a sense of order and routine that mirrored the structured environment of the scriptorium. The occasional treat or more substantial meal might have been provided on feast days or special occasions within the liturgical calendar. These moments of communal celebration would have offered a welcome change from the daily routine and a chance for the monks to enjoy a slightly more generous repast. However, even on these days, the emphasis would have remained on moderation and the spiritual significance of the occasion. As the seasons changed outside the monastery walls, the atmosphere within the scriptorium would have subtly shifted. The long, sun-drenched days of summer would have brought ample natural light, perhaps even requiring the monks to adjust shutters or hang cloths to temper the intensity. The air might have felt warmer, and the sounds of the outside world, birdsong, the rustling of leaves, might have been more pronounced. You can imagine Brother Elias pausing his work briefly, perhaps wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, before returning to the delicate task at hand. With the arrival of autumn, the quality of light would have begun to change, becoming softer and more golden. The days would have grown shorter, requiring the monks to rely more on lamps and candles as the afternoons drew in. The sounds outside might have shifted too, with the rustling of falling leaves and the calls of migrating birds. There would have been a sense of preparing for the colder months ahead. Winter would have presented the most challenging conditions for working in the scriptorium. The days were short and often overcast, providing limited natural light. The stone buildings would have been cold, despite any efforts to heat them with braziers or fireplaces in other parts of the monastery. The monks would have bundled themselves in extra layers of clothing, their breath perhaps visible in the chilly air. Working by the flickering light of lamps and candles would have been essential, but also more difficult and straining on the eyes. You can imagine the increased risk of mistakes in the dim light and the extra care needed to avoid smudging the precious parchment with cold, stiff fingers. The sounds outside might have been muted by snow or the howling wind. Spring would have brought a sense of renewal to the scriptorium as well. The days would lengthen, and the return of brighter light would have been a welcome relief. The sounds of nature, the chirping of returning birds, the buzzing of insects, would have filled the air. There might have been a renewed sense of energy and purpose as the world outside came back to life. These seasonal changes would have subtly influenced the rhythm of work within the scriptorium. The amount of daylight available directly impacted the hours during which detailed illumination could be effectively carried out. The need for artificial light in the darker months would have added to the cost and the challenges of the work. The changing temperatures might have affected the consistency of pigments and the handling of parchment. Despite these variations, the monks' dedication to their work would have remained constant throughout the year. The cycle of the seasons was an accepted part of their lives, a reminder of the natural order and the passage of time. Their commitment to preserving knowledge and creating beauty transcended the changing conditions outside their walls. The illuminated manuscripts they produced stand as enduring testaments to their unwavering focus and skill, regardless of whether the sun was shining brightly or the winter winds were blowing. While the image of the Byzantine scriptorium often focuses on the larger monastic centers, the practice of manuscript illumination and copying wasn't exclusive to these large communities. Smaller monasteries and even individual hermits also played a role in the production and preservation of books, albeit often on a smaller scale. In more remote or smaller monastic settlements, resources might have been more limited. They might not have had the same access to a steady supply of high-quality parchment or rare pigments. The scriptoria in these places might have been more modest, perhaps just a corner of a monk's cell or a small, shared room. The scale of production would likely have been smaller, with monks focusing on copying essential religious texts or creating simpler illuminated works for their own use or for a small local community. Despite the limitations, the dedication and skill of the monks in these smaller settings should not be underestimated. They often worked with whatever materials were available to them, demonstrating ingenuity in preparing parchment from local animal hides or using locally sourced pigments. Their illuminations might have been less elaborate than those produced in larger centers, but they often possessed a unique charm and a directness of expression. Individual hermits, living lives of solitude and contemplation, also sometimes engaged in the copying of manuscripts as part of their spiritual practice. For them, the slow and deliberate process of writing and sometimes illuminating sacred texts could be a form of meditation, a way of deepening their understanding and connection to their faith. Their output would have been even more limited, perhaps only a few books created over many years. These manuscripts, born out of solitude and devotion, often held a special significance. The existence of these smaller centers of manuscript production highlights the widespread importance of books and literacy within the Byzantine world. It wasn't just the large, wealthy monasteries that valued knowledge. Even smaller communities and individuals recognized the importance of preserving and transmitting the written word. The styles of illumination found in manuscripts from these smaller centers might have differed from the more standardized styles of the larger scriptoria. They might have incorporated local artistic traditions or developed unique regional characteristics. Studying these manuscripts can provide valuable insights into the diverse artistic landscape of the Byzantine Empire beyond the major urban centers. While Brother Elias likely worked in a larger, well-established monastery with ample resources, it's important to remember the broader context of manuscript production within the Byzantine world. The quiet dedication of countless monks, in monasteries large and small, ensured the survival and spread of knowledge and faith through the written and illuminated word. Their collective efforts created a rich and enduring legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire us today. The art of Byzantine manuscript illumination did not remain static throughout the centuries. Over the long history of the Byzantine Empire, different monastic orders and regional artistic traditions developed their own distinctive styles and techniques. Observing the evolution of these styles can provide valuable insights into the changing cultural, religious, and artistic influences of the time. Early Byzantine illumination, influenced by classical Roman and early Christian art, often featured more naturalistic depictions of figures and scenes. There was a sense of three-dimensionality and an emphasis on narrative clarity. Colors might have been more muted, and the use of gold, while present, might have been less dominant than in later periods. As the empire evolved, particularly during the Middle Byzantine period, roughly 9th to 12th centuries, new artistic trends emerged. There was a shift towards more stylized and symbolic representations. Figures became more elongated and less naturalistic, with an emphasis on spiritual expression rather than physical realism. Colors became richer and more vibrant, and the use of gold increased, often creating a shimmering, otherworldly effect. Intricate geometric patterns and decorative motifs became more prominent in borders and backgrounds. Different monastic centers also developed their own distinctive styles. For example, the illumination produced in Constantinople, the imperial capital, often reflected the grandeur and sophistication of the imperial court. Manuscripts from this region might feature more elaborate decoration, finer details, and a greater use of precious materials. In contrast, manuscripts from more provincial monasteries or different regions of the empire might exhibit simpler, more rustic styles, reflecting local artistic traditions and the availability of resources. The influence of other cultures also played a role in the evolution of Byzantine illumination. Contact with the Islamic world, for example, led to the adoption of certain decorative motifs and geometric patterns. Interactions with Western European artistic traditions also resulted in some cross-pollination of styles. The late Byzantine period, roughly 13th to 15th centuries, saw a continuation and further development of the trends established in the Middle Byzantine era. There was often an increased emphasis on emotional expression and a greater complexity in composition. The Paleologan Renaissance, a period of intellectual and artistic flourishing in the final centuries of the empire, produced some particularly exquisite illuminated manuscripts. By studying the stylistic features of a particular manuscript, the way figures are drawn, the colors used, the types of ornamentation, and the script employed, art historians can often determine its approximate date and place of origin, and sometimes even identify the monastic workshop or individual artist who created it. This allows us to trace the development of artistic trends and to understand the cultural context in which these manuscripts were produced. Brother Elias, working in his scriptorium, would have been part of this ongoing artistic tradition, influenced by the styles and techniques prevalent in his time and region. He might have adhered closely to established conventions or perhaps incorporated subtle innovations of his own. His work, like that of countless other Byzantine illuminators, contributes to the rich and diverse tapestry of this fascinating artistic heritage. While the vast majority of illuminated manuscripts produced in Byzantine monasteries were religious in nature, intended for liturgical use, private devotion, or theological study, there were also instances of secular texts being illuminated, albeit less frequently and often with simpler decoration. These illuminated secular manuscripts offer a glimpse into the broader intellectual and cultural life of the Byzantine Empire. Historical chronicles, for example, might contain illustrations depicting important events, portraits of emperors and other significant figures, or maps and diagrams to aid in understanding the narrative. These illuminations served not only to enhance the visual appeal of the text, but also to provide a visual record of the past. While they might not have the same elaborate gold leaf or intricate religious symbolism as a gospel book, they nonetheless demonstrate the value placed on visual representation in conveying information. Scientific treatises, such as those on astronomy, medicine, or natural history, might also include illustrations to clarify complex concepts or to depict plants, animals, or anatomical structures. These illustrations were crucial for understanding the text, especially in fields where visual identification was essential. While the artistic style might be more functional than purely decorative, they still represent a form of illumination, bringing light and clarity to the subject matter through visual means. Even some works of classical literature or philosophy that were copied in Byzantine monasteries might occasionally feature simple illustrations. These could depict scenes from the text, portraits of the authors, or symbolic representations of philosophical ideas. The extent of illumination in these secular texts often depended on the patron and the intended use of the manuscript. A lavishly produced copy for a wealthy scholar might include more elaborate decoration than a working copy intended for study within the monastery. The illumination of secular manuscripts highlights the broader role of Byzantine scriptoria as centers of learning and intellectual activity, extending beyond purely religious concerns. The monks who worked in these scriptoria were not just preservers of faith, but also custodians of classical wisdom and contemporary knowledge. Their efforts ensured that a wide range of texts, both sacred and secular, were copied and transmitted to future generations. The survival of illuminated secular Byzantine manuscripts, though fewer in number than their religious counterparts, provides valuable insights into the artistic styles and illustrative traditions applied to non-religious subjects. They demonstrate the versatility of Byzantine illumination and its adaptability to different types of texts and audiences. While Brother Elias's primary focus might be on sacred works, the existence of these illuminated secular manuscripts reminds us of the diverse intellectual landscape in which he lived and worked. The creation of illuminated manuscripts in Byzantine monasteries was a labor-intensive and time-consuming process, often taking months or even years to complete a single volume, especially for more elaborate works. The sheer dedication and patience required from the monks involved is truly remarkable when considering the lack of modern conveniences and the meticulous nature of the work. The preparation of the parchment alone was a lengthy undertaking, requiring multiple stages of cleaning, stretching, and treating the animal hides. The creation of pigments, involving the grinding of raw materials and the mixing of binders, also demanded considerable time and effort. The act of writing the text by hand, ensuring accuracy and legibility over hundreds of pages, was a slow and deliberate process. The illumination, with its intricate designs, vibrant colors, and the application of precious gold leaf, added significantly to the overall time frame. Each initial letter, each border, each miniature painting required hours of focused work, often using fine brushes and painstaking attention to detail. The layering of colors, the delicate shading, and the precise application of gold all contributed to the extended period of creation. The binding process, involving the sewing of quires and the attachment of covers, was another skilled task that required time and care to ensure the durability and longevity of the finished book. For large or particularly ornate manuscripts, the binding itself could be a complex undertaking, involving the use of multiple materials and decorative elements. The collaborative nature of manuscript production within the monastery also contributed to the overall time frame. Different monks might be working on different aspects of the same manuscript simultaneously. One writing the text, another preparing the illuminations, and yet another working on the binding. Coordinating these various stages and ensuring a cohesive final product required careful planning and communication. The length of time required to produce an illuminated manuscript meant that these books were often highly valued and considered precious possessions. They represented not just the cost of the materials, but also the significant investment of human labor and skill. This also explains why they were often commissioned by wealthy patrons or intended for important religious institutions that could afford the time and expense involved. Considering the modern world's emphasis on speed and efficiency, it's almost difficult to fathom the level of patience and dedication exhibited by the Byzantine monks in their scriptoria. Their commitment to their craft, their meticulous attention to detail, and their willingness to invest years in a single project stand in stark contrast to the rapid pace of digital creation and consumption today. The enduring beauty and artistic merit of these illuminated manuscripts are a testament to the value of this slow, deliberate, and deeply committed approach to creation. Despite the dedication and care invested in their creation, Byzantine illuminated manuscripts were not always destined for a life of quiet preservation within the monastery walls. Over the centuries, many of these precious books embarked on journeys far beyond their original scriptoria, often due to a variety of historical circumstances. Trade and diplomacy played a role in the movement of manuscripts. The Byzantine Empire, with its rich culture and artistic heritage, engaged in extensive diplomatic relations and trade with other powers. Illuminated manuscripts, often seen as valuable gifts or symbols of cultural exchange, would have been presented to foreign rulers, dignitaries, or religious leaders. These exchanges helped to spread Byzantine artistic styles and intellectual influence to other parts of the world. The fortunes of war also contributed to the dispersal of manuscripts. During periods of conflict and invasion, monastic libraries were vulnerable to looting by conquering armies. Valuable manuscripts could be taken as spoils of war, ending up in private collections or libraries far from their original home. The sack of Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade, for example, resulted in the significant loss and dispersal of Byzantine cultural treasures, including many manuscripts. Pilgrimage also played a less direct role. While pilgrims visiting holy sites in the Byzantine Empire might not have directly carried away manuscripts, their accounts and descriptions of the art and learning they encountered could have inspired interest in Byzantine culture and potentially led to the later acquisition of manuscripts. The decline and eventual fall of the Byzantine Empire in 1453 led to another significant wave of manuscript dispersal. As the Ottoman Turks conquered Byzantine territories, many scholars and intellectuals fled to Western Europe, taking with them valuable manuscripts, particularly classical Greek texts. These manuscripts played a crucial role in the intellectual ferment of the Renaissance in Italy and beyond, contributing to the revival of classical learning. Over time, through a combination of trade, war, pilgrimage, and the diaspora of Byzantine scholars, illuminated manuscripts found their way into royal libraries, private collections, and university libraries across Europe and the Middle East. The study and appreciation of these manuscripts in their new homes contributed to the development of art history and classical scholarship. Today, Byzantine illuminated manuscripts are scattered in collections around the world, testaments to their enduring beauty and historical significance. Each manuscript carries with it not only the knowledge and faith inscribed on its pages, but also the story of its own journey through time, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of history. The fact that so many have survived these journeys is a remarkable testament to their inherent value and the care they have received over the centuries, even when far from the quiet scriptoria where they were first created. The legacy of Byzantine manuscript illumination extends far beyond the beautiful objects themselves. The artistic techniques, stylistic innovations, and cultural values embodied in these manuscripts had a profound influence on subsequent artistic traditions in both the East and the West. In the Eastern Orthodox world, the artistic principles developed in Byzantine illumination continued to shape the iconography and style of religious art for centuries. The elongated figures, the rich use of color and gold, and the symbolic representation of religious figures and scenes became hallmarks of Orthodox icons and church decorations. The emphasis on spiritual expression over naturalistic representation, a key characteristic of Middle and late Byzantine art, persisted in these traditions. Even today, the influence of Byzantine illumination can be seen in the art of Orthodox Christianity. In Western Europe, the impact of Byzantine illumination was felt in various ways. Early Christian art in the West was heavily influenced by Byzantine models, particularly in the depiction of religious narratives and the use of mosaic and manuscript illumination techniques. As trade and cultural exchange between the East and West increased during the Middle Ages, Byzantine artistic styles continued to inspire Western artists. The grandeur and luminosity of Byzantine gold work, for example, influenced the development of gold grounds in Western panel painting. The rediscovery of Byzantine manuscripts during the Renaissance, particularly classical Greek texts, played a crucial role in the intellectual and artistic revival of that era. The beauty and craftsmanship of the illuminated manuscripts themselves also inspired Western artists and scribes. The elegant scripts and intricate decorative elements found in Byzantine books influenced the development of Renaissance calligraphy and manuscript design. Furthermore, the systematic study of Byzantine art and manuscripts in later centuries contributed to the development of art history as a discipline. Scholars began to analyze the styles, techniques, and iconography of these works, shedding light on the rich cultural and religious history of the Byzantine Empire. The meticulous preservation of these manuscripts in libraries and museums around the world ensures that they continue to be studied and appreciated by new generations. The techniques and materials used in Byzantine illumination, such as the preparation of parchment and pigments, also had a lasting impact. The knowledge and skills developed by Byzantine monks in their scriptoria were often transmitted to other artistic centers and influenced the practices of manuscript production in other cultures. In a broader sense, the dedication to preserving knowledge and creating beauty that characterized the Byzantine scriptoria serves as an enduring inspiration. In a world increasingly dominated by ephemeral digital media, The tangible beauty and lasting quality of these illuminated manuscripts remind us of the value of craftsmanship, patience, and the commitment to creating objects of lasting cultural and spiritual significance. The quiet legacy of Brother Elias and his fellow illuminators continues to resonate through the ages. While the image of the scriptorium is often one of quiet contemplation and focused work, there would have been moments of collaboration and the sharing of knowledge among the monks. Manuscript illumination was a complex art form, and different monks might have possessed specialized skills in various aspects of the process. You might observe Brother Elias consulting with another monk who had a particular expertise in preparing a specific pigment. Perhaps the desired shade required a precise combination of rare minerals, and the other monk had years of experience in achieving the perfect hue. They might discuss the grinding process, the type of binder to use, and the ideal consistency for application. These exchanges would have enriched the knowledge base within the scriptorium and ensured the high quality of the materials used. Similarly, a younger scribe might seek the guidance of an older, more experienced calligrapher on the proper formation of certain letters or the layout of a particularly complex page. The older monk, having spent years perfecting his hand, could offer valuable insights and tips to help the novice improve his skills. This mentorship was crucial for the transmission of knowledge and the maintenance of high standards within the scriptorium. When working on intricate illustrations, particularly those depicting complex theological scenes or requiring historical accuracy, monks with different areas of learning might collaborate. A monk with a deep understanding of scripture might advise the illuminator on the correct iconography and symbolism to use, ensuring that the visual representation accurately reflected the theological meaning. Another monk with knowledge of classical history might provide details on the clothing or architecture of a particular historical period. These collaborations highlight the communal nature of monastic life and the shared commitment to producing accurate and beautiful manuscripts. The scriptorium was not just a collection of individual workers. It was a community of scholars and artists who supported and learned from one another. The pooling of knowledge and skills ensured that the final product was greater than the sum of its individual parts. You might imagine a moment when Brother Elias, working on a depiction of a complex biblical scene, pauses and seeks out a respected theologian within the monastery to clarify a particular point of doctrine or the significance of a specific symbol. This dedication to accuracy and theological soundness was a hallmark of Byzantine manuscript illumination. The sharing of design templates and model books would have also fostered a sense of collaboration and continuity within the scriptorium. Experienced illuminators often created collections of standard motifs, decorative patterns, and figure studies that could be used as reference by other monks. This ensured a degree of stylistic consistency while still allowing for individual artistic expression. These moments of interaction and knowledge sharing would have added a subtle hum of intellectual exchange to the quiet atmosphere of the scriptorium, a reminder that the creation of these magnificent manuscripts was a communal endeavor rooted in learning, faith, and artistic skill. The meticulous and demanding work of manuscript illumination required not only skill and patience, but also a significant degree of physical endurance. Spending long hours hunched over a desk in often dim and drafty conditions could take a toll on the monks' bodies. Eye strain would have been a common complaint. The intricate detail required in both writing and illumination, often performed by the limited light of day or flickering lamps, would have put considerable stress on their vision. Over time, many monks likely experienced deteriorating eyesight. You might notice Brother Elias occasionally rubbing his eyes or adjusting his gaze as he focuses on a particularly fine detail. Back and neck pain would have been another frequent ailment. The posture required for writing and painting for extended periods, leaning forward over a manuscript, could lead to chronic discomfort in the back, neck, and shoulders. The lack of ergonomic furniture would have exacerbated these issues. Imagine spending an entire day perched on a simple wooden stool, your body contorted over your work. It's a recipe for aches and pains. Hand and wrist problems, similar to carpal tunnel syndrome experienced by modern computer users, would also have been prevalent among scribes and illuminators. The repetitive motions of writing with a quill and painting with fine brushes could lead to inflammation and pain in the hands and wrists. You might see a monk gently flexing his fingers or taking a brief pause to stretch his hands. The cold and damp conditions prevalent in many monasteries, particularly during the winter months, could have contributed to other health issues, such as arthritis and respiratory problems. The lack of adequate heating and ventilation in the stone buildings would have made them susceptible to chills and dampness. Despite these physical challenges, the monks persevered in their work, driven by their faith and their commitment to preserving knowledge. The scriptorium, while a center of intellectual and artistic endeavor, was also a place where physical discomfort was a constant companion. The beautiful manuscripts they produced are not only testaments to their skill, but also to their physical endurance and dedication in the face of these hardships. It's humbling to consider the physical toll that this work took on the monks. Their dedication to their craft often came at the expense of their own physical well-being. The fact that they continued to labor with such precision and artistry despite these challenges speaks volumes about their commitment and the importance they placed on their work. The illuminated pages that have survived to this day are a poignant reminder of the human effort and sacrifice that went into their creation. While the primary focus of Byzantine illuminated manuscripts was often religious or classical texts, there were also instances where these skills were applied to more practical documents, albeit usually within the context of the monastery itself. These illuminated practical documents offer a fascinating glimpse into the daily life and administrative functions of these monastic communities. For example, monastic calendars or liturgical charts, which detailed the cycle of religious observances and feast days, might be illuminated with decorative borders, symbolic imagery related to specific saints or seasons, and carefully rendered calligraphy. These visually appealing documents would have served a practical purpose, guiding the monks through the complex rhythms of their religious life. Land charters or donation records, which documented the monastery's land holdings and the gifts bestowed upon it by patrons, might also feature illuminated initials or decorative elements to add a sense of solemnity and importance to these legal documents. The visual embellishment would have underscored the significance and permanence of these records. Even inventories of the monastery's possessions, listing everything from books and liturgical vessels to agricultural tools and livestock, might occasionally include simple illustrations of key items or decorative flourishes. While not as elaborate as the illumination in religious manuscripts, these visual elements would have added clarity and visual interest to what were essentially administrative lists. The illumination of these practical documents highlights the pervasive role of visual artistry within the Byzantine monastic world. Even in the realm of administration and record-keeping, there was an appreciation for beauty and order. The skills honed in the creation of religious manuscripts were also applied to the more mundane aspects of monastic life, suggesting a cultural value placed on visual presentation. It's important to note that the level of illumination in these practical documents would have varied greatly depending on their importance and intended use. A grand charter recording a significant imperial donation would likely receive more elaborate treatment than a simple inventory of kitchen utensils. However, the very fact that even these everyday documents sometimes featured illumination speaks to the artistic sensibilities of the time. These illuminated practical documents offer a valuable counterpoint to the more well-known religious manuscripts, providing a more holistic view of the visual culture within Byzantine monasteries. They remind us that the skills of the scribes and illuminators were not confined solely to the realm of the sacred, but also played a role in the practical organization and administration of these complex communities. While Brother Elias might primarily dedicate his talents to illuminating scripture, the existence of these other illuminated documents suggests a broader appreciation for the power and beauty of the written and decorated word within his world. The gradual decline of the Byzantine Empire over the centuries had a noticeable impact on the production of illuminated manuscripts. Periods of political instability, economic hardship, and territorial loss often led to a decrease in patronage and resources available for artistic endeavors, including the creation of elaborate books. During times of war and invasion, monasteries, which were often centers of manuscript production, could be directly affected. Libraries might be damaged or destroyed, and monks might be forced to flee, disrupting the continuity of artistic traditions. The loss of skilled artisans and the disruption of established scriptoria inevitably led to a decline in the quality and quantity of manuscript illumination. Economic downturns also played a significant role. The costly materials used in illuminated manuscripts, such as high-quality parchment, rare pigments, and gold, became more difficult to acquire when the empire's trade networks were disrupted or when wealthy patrons had less disposable income. This often resulted in simpler styles of illumination, with less use of precious materials and fewer elaborate decorations. However, even during periods of decline, the tradition of manuscript production did not entirely cease. Monks continued to copy and illuminate texts, albeit often on a smaller scale and with more limited resources. In some cases, regional artistic styles might have flourished even as the central imperial power weakened. These later Byzantine manuscripts, while perhaps lacking the grandeur of earlier periods, still hold significant artistic and historical value, reflecting the resilience of Byzantine culture in the face of adversity. The Paleologan Renaissance, a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing in the final centuries of the empire, 13th to 15th centuries, saw a resurgence of artistic activity, including manuscript illumination. Artists during this period often looked back to earlier Byzantine traditions for inspiration, creating works of great beauty and sophistication, even as the empire faced increasing threats from external forces. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked a major turning point, leading to the end of the Byzantine Empire. However, the tradition of Byzantine manuscript illumination did not disappear entirely. Many Byzantine scholars and artists fled to other parts of the Orthodox world, carrying their skills and artistic traditions with them. These traditions continued to influence manuscript production in regions like the Balkans and Russia for centuries to come. The legacy of Byzantine illumination, therefore, is one of both continuity and change, reflecting the complex history of the empire itself. While periods of decline inevitably impacted artistic production, the underlying traditions and skills persisted, adapting to new circumstances and continuing to inspire artists and scholars long after the empire had fallen. The illuminated manuscripts that survive from these later periods offer a poignant reminder of the enduring power of art and culture in the face of historical upheaval. The invention and spread of the printing press in the mid-15th century in Western Europe marked a profound shift in the production and dissemination of books. This new technology, which allowed for the mass production of texts at a significantly lower cost and faster rate than hand copying, eventually led to the gradual decline of manuscript illumination as the primary means of book production. Initially, printed books were often seen as less prestigious than handcrafted manuscripts, and early printed editions sometimes even included hand-painted decorations to emulate the look of illuminated books. However, the economic and practical advantages of printing were undeniable. The ability to produce multiple identical copies of a text quickly and affordably revolutionized access to knowledge and played a crucial role in the spread of literacy and the intellectual ferment of the Renaissance and Reformation. As printing technology improved and became more widespread, the demand for illuminated manuscripts gradually decreased. The labor-intensive process of hand copying and decorating books could not compete with the speed and efficiency of the printing press. While manuscript production did not cease entirely, it became increasingly confined to luxury items for wealthy collectors or important religious texts. In the Byzantine world, which was facing increasing political and military pressure in the decades leading up to the fall of Constantinople, the adoption of the printing press was slower compared to Western Europe. The strong tradition of manuscript production, the close ties between text and image in religious books, and perhaps a degree of cultural conservatism contributed to this slower adoption. However, even in the Byzantine successor states and among Orthodox communities, the rise of printing eventually impacted the production of illuminated manuscripts. The skills of scribes and illuminators, once central to the preservation and dissemination of knowledge, gradually became less essential in the new era of print. While calligraphy and artistic decoration continued to be valued in certain contexts, the primary means of book production had shifted. The illuminated manuscripts that were produced in the era of print often reflect this changing landscape. They might be created as deliberate works of art, consciously evoking the traditions of the past, or they might represent a more limited and localized continuation of older practices. The scale of production was generally smaller, and the patronage might have come from a different segment of society. The transition from manuscript to print was a gradual process, and illuminated manuscripts continued to be produced for some time after the invention of the printing press. However, the long-term trend was clear. The age of the hand-illuminated book as the dominant form of textual transmission was drawing to a close. The legacy of Byzantine manuscript illumination, however, lived on in the artistic traditions it had influenced and in the enduring beauty of the manuscripts themselves, which became increasingly valued as historical artifacts and works of art. Despite the eventual dominance of the printing press, the illuminated manuscripts created in Byzantine monasteries continue to hold immense artistic, historical, and cultural significance. They serve as invaluable primary sources for understanding the intellectual, religious, and artistic life of the Byzantine Empire for over 1,000 years. Artistically, these manuscripts represent some of the finest examples of medieval craftsmanship and artistic skill. The intricate calligraphy, the vibrant colors of the pigments, the delicate application of gold leaf, and the often complex iconography of the illuminations showcase the talent and dedication of the monks who created them. They provide a visual record of the evolution of Byzantine artistic styles and techniques over time, reflecting changing aesthetic preferences and cultural influences. Historically, illuminated manuscripts offer crucial insights into the intellectual and religious landscape of the Byzantine world. They preserve texts ranging from scripture and theological treatises to classical literature and scientific writings, providing direct access to the knowledge and beliefs of the period. The annotations and marginalia found in some manuscripts can also reveal how these texts were read and interpreted by contemporary scholars and readers. Culturally, these manuscripts are tangible links to the Byzantine civilization, a powerful empire that played a pivotal role in the transmission of classical learning and the development of Orthodox Christianity. They offer a window into the daily lives, spiritual practices, and artistic sensibilities of the monastic communities that produced them. The very act of creating these elaborate books reflects the high value placed on knowledge, faith, and beauty within Byzantine society. The survival of these manuscripts to the present day is a testament to their enduring value and the care they have received over the centuries. They are now treasured possessions of libraries, museums, and private collections around the world, where they are studied, exhibited, and conserved for future generations. Modern scholarship continues to uncover new insights from these ancient books, using advanced techniques to analyze their materials, dating, and historical context. The beauty and craftsmanship of Byzantine illuminated manuscripts continue to inspire artists and designers today. Their elegant scripts, intricate patterns, and rich color palettes are often referenced in contemporary art and graphic design. The fusion of text and image in these manuscripts also remains a source of fascination for those interested in visual storytelling and the history of the book. In a digital age, where information is often fleeting and intangible, these physical objects offer a powerful connection to the past. Holding an illuminated manuscript in your hands, tracing the lines of the ancient script, and marveling at the vibrant colors applied centuries ago is a profound experience. It's a reminder of the enduring power of human creativity and the importance of preserving our cultural heritage. The quiet dedication of Brother Elias and his fellow illuminators continues to speak to us across the centuries through the beauty and wisdom contained within these precious pages. Imagine, if you will, the final stages of Brother Elias's work on a particularly intricate illuminated manuscript. Years of dedication, countless hours spent hunched over his desk, the scent of beeswax and pigment a constant companion. The manuscript, perhaps a beautifully rendered psalter or a gospel book destined for a wealthy patron, is nearing completion. The final touches are often the most demanding, requiring the steadiest hand and the keenest eye. Perhaps he is adding minute details to a miniature painting, the delicate folds of a saint's robe, or the subtle expression on a biblical figure's face. His brushstrokes are tiny, almost imperceptible, each one contributing to the overall impact of the image. The gold leaf, applied earlier, might now be undergoing its final burnishing, the smooth agate stone gliding gently over the precious metal, bringing it to a radiant shine that seems to emanate from the page itself. He checks the adhesion, ensuring that every tiny section is firmly in place, catching the light just so. The borders surrounding the text and illuminations are complete, intricate patterns of swirling vines, geometric motifs, or perhaps even small animals woven into the design. He runs a careful eye along their length, ensuring the lines are crisp and the colors vibrant. The calligraphy of the main text, the work of another dedicated monk, complements his illuminations perfectly, the elegant script flowing smoothly across the ruled lines of the parchment. He might occasionally glance at the text, ensuring that his illustrations align harmoniously with the words they accompany. The quires of parchment, filled with text and vibrant imagery, have been carefully sewn together, and the sturdy covers, perhaps adorned with tooled leather or even precious metal fittings, have been securely attached. The manuscript now feels substantial in the hands, a testament to the time and effort invested in its creation. As he puts the final touches on the last illuminated page, there might be a sense of quiet satisfaction, a feeling of accomplishment after months or years of dedicated labor. This manuscript is more than just a book. It is a work of art, a vessel of knowledge and faith, a testament to the enduring power of human creativity and devotion. He carefully closes the finished manuscript, the weight of the covers settling with a soft thud. It is ready to begin its journey, whether it be to a royal court, a distant monastery, or a private chapel. It will carry the words of Scripture, the wisdom of the ancients, or the stories of the saints to those who will read its pages, its beauty enhancing their understanding and inspiring their contemplation. Brother Elias might take a moment to reflect on the countless hours of quiet work, the challenges overcome, and the sense of purpose that guided his hand. He has contributed to a tradition that stretches back centuries, a legacy of preserving knowledge and creating beauty for the glory of God and the enlightenment of humankind. And as the light fades in the scriptorium at the end of another day, the silent witness of the completed manuscript speaks volumes about the enduring spirit of the Byzantine monastic world. As the day in the Byzantine monastery draws to a close, a sense of quiet descends upon the scriptorium. The natural light fades, casting long shadows across the desks and illuminating the dust motes dancing in the still air. The gentle scratching of quills has ceased, the pots of pigment are covered, and the precious manuscripts are carefully stored away for the night. Brother Elias, his day's work complete, slowly gathers his tools. The well-worn quills are placed in their holder, the smooth burnishing stone is laid aside, and the remaining pigments are carefully sealed. There's a sense of order and tidiness as the workspace is prepared for the next day's endeavors. He might pause for a moment, looking around the scriptorium, perhaps his gaze lingering on a manuscript that is nearing completion or on the work of a younger monk still learning the craft. There's a quiet pride in the shared purpose of this space, the dedication to preserving knowledge and creating beauty that binds the community together. The sounds of the monastery shift as evening approaches. The chanting of vespers, the evening prayer service, might drift in from the chapel, a melodic and soothing sound that marks the end of the working day and the transition to a time of spiritual reflection and rest. The rhythmic tolling of the monastery bell might punctuate the quiet, calling the monks to prayer. The air in the scriptorium might carry the faint scent of extinguished lamps or the lingering aroma of beeswax candles that provided light during the darker hours. There's a coolness to the stone walls as the day's warmth dissipates. Brother Elias might offer a silent prayer of thanks for the day's work, for the ability to contribute to the monastery's mission through his skill and dedication. He might also pray for guidance and inspiration for the tasks that lie ahead. As he leaves the scriptorium, the heavy wooden door closing gently behind him, the room settles into a deeper silence. The illuminated manuscripts within, each a testament to hours of patient labor, rest peacefully, awaiting the light of the new day to reveal their beauty once more. The monastery prepares for the night. The monks gather for their evening meal, taken in silence and contemplation. The final prayer service of Compline is recited before they retire to their simple cells for rest, their bodies weary but their spirits nourished by prayer and purpose. The rhythm of monastic life continues, a cycle of work, prayer, and rest that has endured for centuries. And within that rhythm, the quiet dedication to the creation of illuminated manuscripts plays its vital role, preserving knowledge, spreading faith, and adding beauty to the world, one carefully crafted page at a time. The gentle hum of purpose that filled the scriptorium during the day now gives way to the peaceful stillness of night, a promise of renewal and continued dedication in the morning light. The monastery sleeps. A profound stillness envelopes the stone buildings, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves in the courtyard or the distant hoot of an owl. Within the scriptorium, The completed manuscripts lie in quiet repose, their vibrant colors and intricate details hidden in the darkness, awaiting the dawn. Imagine the gentle coolness of the parchment, the faint scent of aged ink and dried pigments lingering in the air. The gold leaf, burnished to a brilliant sheen, rests silently, ready to catch the first rays of sunlight. The stories and prayers contained within these pages await the eyes of future readers, carrying the wisdom and faith of centuries past. Think of the countless hours of devotion poured into each stroke of the quill, each carefully mixed pigment, each delicate application of gold. The monks, now resting from their labors, have imbued these manuscripts with their spirit, their patience, and their unwavering commitment. As you picture this scene, let your own thoughts begin to slow. Feel the gentle rhythm of your breath, the soft rise and fall of your chest. Allow the images of the quiet scriptorium and the sleeping monastery to create a sense of peace and tranquility within you. The weight of the day begins to lift, replaced by a feeling of calm surrender. The stories and images of the Byzantine monks and their illuminated manuscripts fade softly into the background, leaving a sense of quiet wonder and appreciation for their dedication. Let your mind drift now, like a feather on a gentle breeze. There is no need to hold onto any particular thought or image. Simply allow your awareness to soften and expand, embracing the stillness of the night. The sounds around you might become more noticeable, the soft hum of the air conditioning, the gentle ticking of a clock, the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. These sounds are anchors to the present moment, grounding you in a sense of peace and security. Feel the comfort of your bed, the softness of your pillow. Allow your body to relax completely, releasing any tension you may be holding. Your muscles soften, your eyelids grow heavy. The journey through the world of Byzantine illuminated manuscripts is complete for tonight. You have witnessed the dedication, the artistry, and the quiet devotion of the monks who labored to create these beautiful and enduring works. Now, as sleep gently beckons, allow yourself to drift away on a sea of calm. Let the final images of the peaceful scriptorium and the sleeping monastery be the last thoughts in your mind. Sweet dreams.